Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. You will hear from former FEC chairman explaining that Trump did not commit a campaign finance crime. You're going to hear from President Trump. I want to say it at the very beginning of this, I do not know what will happen. This is not a prediction. I'm explaining that if Trump is convicted, and it looks like he's going to be convicted, his poll numbers will skyrocket, will surge even more so than they've done. He will become president. The New York Court of Appeals will overturn any conviction. We'll explain why. The FEC, really quickly, and to my super chat, Paul Bartlett, thank you so very, very much. To my super chat, thank you so very much. The FEC already dropped the inquiry into Trump's hush money payment to Stormy. The FEC fined Clinton and the DNC for purchasing the Steele dossier. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. You will hear future President and former President Trump, but you will hear former and future President Donald Trump. You will hear Bradley Smith, the former FEC chairman, explaining why nothing Trump did was a crime. If they do convict him, the entire planet is going to ask, why did the FEC drop the hush money investigation? Why didn't they fine Trump? So before you hear FEC chairman, before you hear Donald Trump on this live stream, you have to ask yourself, why did the FEC drop the case? Why did they refuse to fine Trump? And why did they fine Clinton and the DNC? This is the heart of the matter, ladies and gentlemen. This is why his poll numbers will go up if he's convicted. It looks like, according to a CBS article, that Secret Service, unfortunately, and it pains me to say this, is already meeting with local jail officials. But the thing is, the Secret Service, he's not going to go to Rikers, okay? He'll be on perhaps house arrest in Mar-a-Lago or something where he can still campaign. He'll still be allowed to campaign, okay? So he'll be out on bail, or he'll be out. There's very little likelihood that they're going to actually send him to jail, even if he's convicted. And any jail would be house arrest. It wouldn't be like Trump in prison or jail. So that's completely absurd. And the Secret Service would go with him anywhere anyway. Bob, thank you. Nicholas Orm, thank you so very, very much. So hit subscribe to this channel right now. You're going to hear exactly why, even if he is convicted, it will be immediately overturned. I would say within a year, year and a half, 2 years, possibly within a month or so. Within 2 years, okay? It takes a while. They'll probably want to write as many articles stating that he's a convicted felon. The American people will vote for Trump as a convicted felon in New York, a city run by the Democratic Party. So, of course, the political motivation here is to accuse Trump of something that even the FEC did not accuse him of. They dropped the case. The FEC, again, fined Clinton and the DNC for purchasing the Steele dossier. Literally, the only people who committed campaign finance crimes were Democrats. But they went after Trump. That's the way it works in American politics. Hit subscribe right now. You will listen to exactly why the FEC dropped the case. There was no federal crime. Again, according to FEC Chairman Bradley Smith, Hans A. von Spakovsky, in this article right here, if it's an expenditure, he would have paid Stormy whether or not he ran for president. Again, he would have paid Stormy whether or not he ran for president. So this is a former FEC chairman writing for the Heritage Foundation, and also a former FEC chairman speaking to Mark Levin. There is no crime here, which is why it'll be overturned. Okay, you'll hear from the brilliant Professor Alan Dershowitz as well. But hit subscribe to this channel. I am simply explaining the reality, or the legal reality here. There's no federal crime, which makes the misdemeanors simply a misdemeanor, and also legal expenses were marked legal expenses. Michael Cohen used his own money, and he also stole from Trump as well. But let's continue here. Hit subscribe.
Many of them running for re-election as incumbents. They're using tax dollars. It influences the campaign. Why aren't they indicted?
Well, we know why they're not indicted, right? Because we don't want to indict them. But no, it's a good example of things that influence the campaign. And it's worth noting that under the FEC's regulations, if you're an incumbent office holder, you're presumed to be running for re-election. So you're all presumed to be candidates unless they've announced that they're not seeking re-election. So they would be candidates, and this is something that they probably did to influence their future campaign or their perception as office holders. And one thing that's worth adding here, Mark, is because I hear this from people all the time, and even some other, election people who know election law, lawyers, and some former other commissioners will say, yes, but it was to influence an election. But the FEC in its regulations very specifically rejected the idea that even as to whether it was primarily to influence the election or not, and choosing instead this test that it has to be an obligation that was created for the election. In other words, they didn't want to get into the question of trying to guess, well, did they do this primarily for the election or primarily for personal purposes?
If he would have paid Stormy, whether or not he ran for president, if he paid Stormy, and it was a payment that would have taken place with or without the 2016, with or without him running for president in 2016, which is what would have taken place. Even the people who were on the prosecution witnesses stated, the tabloid president stated, yeah, he did that for a lot of celebrities. They're not running for office, yet they use hush money payments. Okay, they're not running for office, yet they still paid people to be quiet about romantic relationships. So he would have paid Stormy regardless of whether or not he was running for president. That's what makes it legal from a campaign finance perspective. He did not purchase a dossier full of lies and information that misinforms. Okay? Democrats, the wonderful, morally superior among us, believe pure fantasy and lies and hoaxes and myths that they create. Then they pontificate about the how harmful information that misinforms is. They believe a dossier that was literally purchased only for 2016 to disparage Trump, to demean him, and to ruin a potential presidency if he were to win, which he did. And that was used in part to investigate Trump. It was only lies, so much so that one of the greatest liars we've ever seen, Trump's former lawyer Michael Cohen, was suing BuzzFeed because he was part of the Steele dossier. And it was just a compilation of gossip from, by the way, compiled by an intel official from another country, as Democrats pontificate about Trump in other countries. And so that was, as you can see, an FEC crime. They had to fine Clinton and the DNC. Clinton and the DNC aren't being imprisoned in New York, or they're not being tried in New York for a criminal case. I'm not exactly sure. I don't think New York prosecutors asked whether or not these were legal expenses. And if they were legal expenses, the way Trump categorized them as a business expense or legal expenses, were they then a wrong business expense, the misdemeanor that they try to elevate to a felony because of a federal crime? Because the federal, the government agency in charge of campaign finance laws fined Clinton and the DNC. The federal agency in charge of campaign finance laws dropped Trump's hush money case because there was no crime there. That's exactly what Bradley Smith is stating, and what I'm trying to reiterate. He would have made the payment with or without 2016. Clinton and the DNC would not have purchased the dossier were it not for 2016.
And it's very specific about that in the regulations, and I think that's a very important point that people need to keep in mind. And that was done actually to make it more objective and actually to prevent candidates from using their campaign funds for personal use. But, you know, that's the flip side. And I tell people, imagine if you're a lawyer for the Trump campaign and you want to do it all right. You've got one provision of the statute says I have to pay it with the campaign funds. Another provision seems to say I can't pay it with campaign funds. Somebody's going to get them coming or going, and that's part of the problem.
So if you're a lawyer for the Trump campaign or the coming Trump campaign, you would do pretty much what Donald Trump did. No campaign money, consult your private lawyer, and they enter into these non-disclosure agreements. Greg, let me ask you this. Isn't the real issue here is people were actually paid under the non-disclosure agreements and then they violated the non-disclosure agreements? I don't see them giving the money back.
No, you're absolutely right. I think it's malpractice for the attorney for Stormy Daniels to say, go ahead and talk while the case is pending as to whether or not it's a valid and enforceable non-disclosure agreement. So it's stunning to me. But to Bradley's point, not everything that benefits a candidate is considered to be a campaign expense. Professor Smith wrote that in one of his op-eds, and he's absolutely right. If there is a dual purpose or a secondary purpose, it's not a campaign expense. And moreover, and
here is, let's see, where can we find here? You look, such payments. So in this article right here from Hans A. von Spakovsky, he explains that if they were made here, they were made irrespective, used to fulfill any commitment, obligation, or expense of a person that would exist irrespective of the candidate's election campaign. Irrespective of the campaign. The statute that they're trying to get Trump on does not include expenditures that would exist irrespective of the campaign. So, this is why, dun dun dun, the FEC dropped the case. Okay? And this is why, again, the Clinton campaign and DNC were fined for purchasing the Steele dossier. Okay? Literally a compilation of lies and gossip specifically to ruin and to deceive and indoctrinate millions upon millions of wonderful, morally superior liberal Democrats to convince them that Trump was a Kremlin operative. You couldn't get more nefarious, insidious, and deceitful. But as this is how American politics runs. And by the way, Tim Pool had a brilliant, historic YouTube interview with President Trump. If you're subscribed to this channel, I'm sure you're subscribed to Tim Pool. I am. I listen to him every day. He's awesome. Tim Pool, Sticks, X, and Hammer. Subscribe to those channels. There's a bunch of other good channels too. But I'm doing this segment because I do think that there's a pretty good chance. I do not know. I don't know anything that I don't know if he's going to get convicted. I hope he doesn't. But if he does get convicted, I think that he wins in an even more stunning fashion. Okay? Nothing stops Trump. Nothing can stop Trump. But the fact that they would convict Trump when Nicholas, thank you again. My goodness. I appreciate that, Nicholas and Paul and T Duck, everyone here. Thank you so very much. I just think, ladies and gentlemen, Nicholas and Paul and T Duck and everybody here, and to my super chat, thank you. Bob, thank you. I just think that I want my viewers to understand that he did not commit a crime on a federal. He did not commit a federal crime. That's why it'll be overturned. This is all for public relations. This is the antithesis of the rule of law. This is purely political. But let's continue here.
Media rushed and said, "Oh, Cohen pled guilty. The president must be guilty." That's utter nonsense. First of all, under the Federal Campaign Election Act and other related laws that criminalize violations, there has to be knowledge. You have to show that there was a knowing and deliberate violation of the law in order for it to be criminal. Well, most candidates don't know the election law. Heck, a lot of lawyers don't understand election laws. This gentleman, former commissioner, the Federal Election Commission, chairman, I mean, he knows election law. He may be just about the only one in America who really truly knows it. So you couldn't criminalize what Trump did if it wasn't properly accounted for as an advance or reimbursement. Okay, that's a civil penalty. It's the equivalent of a jaywalking $500 fine.
They're trying to say that he did not properly cite this. He improperly cited this as a business expense, but he stated it was a legal expense. He paid a lawyer, or he was reimbursing a lawyer. But again, we have no clue if he was reimbursing Cohen for the hush money. Furthermore, Cohen stated that he was stealing money, literally stealing like 30 grand. And he also stated under oath he had no evidence. Congressman Stubbe of Florida, in a cross-examination under oath in Congress in 2018, asked Michael Cohen, "Do you have any recording?" Michael Cohen said, "No, nothing, no email, no recording." And then what happens? At trial, they use a recording. It's like, well, what? He stated under oath he had no evidence. And he oftentimes under oath stated that he did things on his own without Trump's knowledge. But I think that New York Democrats so desperately, in the most desperate, laser focus manner, want to say that he's a convicted felon, that this is about the rule of law. And Democrats would say that if the opposite were true, if Trump were doing this to them, they would say he was a despot and a authoritarian. But see, this is the entire planet will see this as not even a crime. And then you have Hunter's laptop, where 50 intel officials said it was a Kremlin plot, which of course turned out to be yet again a lie, like the Steele dossier, a lie. How many lies have Democrats told? Grandiose. Infinitely more than Trump's 60,000 lies, according to the Washington Post, which are basically slicing and dicing statements, like hyperbolic statements about how good the economy is or was in 2018, 2019, not 50 intel officials covering up potential graft and bribery in a laptop. So that's the difference. When Trump lies, it's about like a hyperbolic statement about something good. When Democrats lie, they get fined for purchasing a dossier full of complete and utter fabrications that are used to investigate Trump. So they're very good at using the legal system. And then you have all of these investigations. Oh, there was no bias. There was only bias and animus and contempt for Trump today and 7 years ago. But anyway, let's continue.
But it's certainly not a crime.
I did a search. It didn't take me long. of all the federal candidates who've been charged and been convicted of violating these laws. I can't find a single one. Are you aware of a single one?
For this kind of scenario?
This kind of scenario?
No, I'm really not. Of course, the most high-profile one would be John Edwards from a few years ago.
And what happened in that
Folks may
case?
remember
Yeah.
that supporters were paying money to a woman, Riley Hunter, I believe was her name, with whom he'd had an affair and an illegitimate child. And now it's worth noting, the U.S. attorney indicted him, so they went to trial on it. So the U.S. attorney thought there was a case, but in the end, the jury did not convict. He was acquitted on some charges, and others was a hung jury. And I think that shows the tremendous difficulty. And one quick little anecdote when we talk about how obscure this law is, how difficult, is Antonin Scalia, who was a reasonably good lawyer, right, actually said from the bench in the Supreme Court argument once that this campaign finance law is so complex, I can't figure it out. So if we've got a Supreme Court justice can't figure it out, you see the problems that people have when they're trying to deal with it on a daily basis.
And the reason I'm bringing this up now, weeks and weeks after all the fanfare, is because, and I want to get into this when we come back, this is what happens. It's hit and run. And I want to slow things down so we can unravel things that just happened before we get on to the next thing, which is a daily recitation that wears out the voter, that wears out the American people, of a Trump violation of law, a Trump.
And Tim Pool mentioned this yesterday when he interviewed Trump. I suggest everyone watch the Tim Pool interview. It's absolutely brilliant. The average person who isn't into politics might actually think Trump is guilty. If you're actually into politics, you subscribe to this channel, you subscribe to other fantastic, amazing channels, you know that it's not about the law. He did not commit a federal crime, which would elevate the misdemeanors into a felony. Okay, they got him on. They're trying so desperately to imprison Trump. They get him on a record-keeping violation as a misdemeanor, which he labeled it legal expenses. And they elevated to a felony for a federal crime that the FEC, yet again, will show you, the FEC, The Hill, Fox News, BBC, Washington Post, Axios, New York Times, it's all here. The FEC dropped the case. They did not even find Trump. They didn't even find Trump, but they fined Clinton and the DNC. Okay, so that should give you pretty much all you need to know about this really, really absurd state of affairs. But let's go ahead and listen to Trump really quickly.
Found out the government just said that they want 2 to 3 more weeks. That means they want to keep me off the trail for 2 to 3 more weeks. Now, anybody in there would realize there's no case. They don't have a case. Every legal scholar says they don't have a case. This is just a political witch hunt. It's election interfering. And this is really, truly election interference, and it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. And in every poll, I'm leading by a lot. And they figure maybe they can do something here. Maybe they can do. This case should be over. This case should have never been brought. By the way, Alvin Bragg didn't want to bring the case. Your previous DA didn't bring the case. The FEC said they threw it away. They said, you got to be kidding. Southern District didn't bring the case. Nobody brought the case. And then Alvin Bragg brought the case as soon as, when I'm running and leading, that's when they decided, let's go bring a case. So it's a disgrace. But we just heard 2 to 3 more weeks. I thought they were finished today. And they are finished today if you look at what's happening. I thought they were going to be finished today, and they want 2 to 3 more weeks. The judge asked them, and playing right into the judge's hands. The judge is so happy about 2 to 3 more weeks. Because they all want to keep me off the campaign trail. That's all this is about. This is about election interference. How do we stop it? And it's a disgrace. And then you have the other thing that maybe is even more disgraceful is the gag order. where I can't basically, I have to watch every word I tell you people. You ask me a question, a simple question, I'd like to give it, but I can't talk about it. Because this judge has given me a gag order and said you'll go to jail if you violate it. And frankly, you know what? Our Constitution is much more important than jail. It's not even close. I'll do that sacrifice any day. But what's happening here is a disgrace, and the appellate courts ought to get involved. New York looks so bad. The New York system of so-called justice looks so bad between this judge in Gorin and Kaplan. You triple teamed with corrupt judges. Is a disgrace to our nation. So I should be out there campaigning, and they said 2, and the way I look at it, they're really talking about 3 weeks more. And by the way, they didn't even have enough to fill out the time. You know, we got out early today because they didn't have another witness. The government didn't have another witness. So they didn't even have time to fill it out. And then they complained. So I'll tell you what, I hope you report the story accurately. This is a real threat to our country, and it's a serious threat to the Constitution. In the meantime, Columbia University announced today they're not going to have their graduation. They're not going to have a ceremony. And that's happening all over the country. Our country is a mess. And the most important day in the history of our country is going to be November 5th of this year. That's called Election Day. It's going to be the most important day in the history of our country. What's going on with this judge is a disaster. Between the gag orders and the hatred he's got for me, and everybody sees it, okay, and you see it better than anybody. God bless the USA.
Is Stormy Daniels a liar?
So this is President Trump. Couple weeks back, kind of he's giving you his thoughts on the trial. And, you know, if he does get convicted, it will be an embarrassing moment for this country. God bless this man. You know, it's very true. If they can do this to Trump, if they can desperately try to imprison Trump, while at the same time desperately try to protect their likely criminal behavior with a laptop, with servers, with other issues, the only hope for democracy is Trump. When people say, democracy, the only hope for democracy is Trump. Robert De Niro says, he'll never leave. He left. Trump is in New York now. He's not on the White House lawn begging to get into the White House. He hasn't been to the White House since January of 2021. The man left. My God, what do these people want? Like, Trump leaves, it's not good enough for them. They just make things up. He'll never leave. He'll never leave, everyone. If he wins, he'll never leave. He left. The man left. His poll numbers are through the roof. He's been giving speeches and rallies, packed. He's taking over traditionally Democratic Party demographics are voting for Trump. Young people, people of color are voting for Trump more than ever before. Democrats are relegated to Robert De Niro and Ladies at the View and all the wonderful, morally superior, aging Hollywood celebrities and producers and directors. That's it. Millionaire liberals are going to protect America from Trump. And then they're trying to imprison him, which will be a catastrophe for the Democratic Party. His poll numbers will go up. The conviction will be overturned. He'll win in a landslide. Either way, he'll win in a landslide. But hit subscribe if you're new. By the way, everybody here, thank you so very much. Thank you to my super chat. Thank you.
They can say whatever they want, but I'm not allowed to say anything about anybody. It's a disgrace, and you see it. The media sees it. And it's really very sad if you look at the legal experts and the legal scholars, every one of them say this trial is a scam. It's something should have never happened. By the way, it could have happened 7 years ago. They bring it right during the election. Nobody sees that. Nobody talks about it. This should have been 7 years ago. It shouldn't have been brought. But if it was going to be brought, it should have been brought 7 years ago. And, you know, we're talking about 2016. We're talking about something that goes back a charge of 2006. Think of it. We're talking about 2016. We're talking about a charge that's 18 or 19 years old. It's all fake. The whole case is fake. The judge is corrupt. And the only thing he gives us is to make him look a little bit good. He gives us nothing. And what he just did now is a joke. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. So I just want to mention right here, Biden made a claim that inflation under Trump was 9%. When it wasn't, it was a tiny fraction. It was 1.4% and actually going down. We had essentially almost no inflation. But we had 9% inflation, and that's a fake number because not everything was included with Biden. And if you add it all up, I think it's a 50% inflation tax. I call it the Biden inflation tax. So he lies, and he lies about everything, including his golf game, because he can't hit a ball. He can't hit a ball 100 yards. Lies about everything, but he came out, and I saw that this last couple of days, he was talking about the Trump inflation was 9%. No, his inflation was 9%. That's a tax on the American people due to gross incompetence. And it was all started because of his energy policies, his stupid Green New Deal energy policies. And you wait till see. If we don't win this nation is finished. You wait till you see what would happen. Because all of that stuff will be closed up. He let a lot of my energy policies go through because energy was starting under what they were doing, starting to go up so high. So he let a lot of them continue, including the drilling, because the prices were going so high for gasoline and energy. And now he comes out and he actually says, I guess with a straight face, but I'm not sure he knows what he's saying anyway, that it was 9% under Trump. So at least the New York Post, and I hear the Wall Street Journal, and a couple of others did correct it. Now, it was 1.4. It was actually lower than that. We included everything. They didn't include everything. They took some of the worst categories and didn't include them in the 9%. So his 9% is actually much higher than that. But it's a tax over a 4-year period of more than 50%. And I call it the inflation tax, the Biden inflation tax. Now here's another one that just came out, Axios. No friend of mine. They say that Biden's big donors fume over Israel criticism. Biden's donors are the ones that are against Israel. So somehow maybe those people legally obscene. It's, I mean, the articles are unbelievable. And I'd hand you the articles, but the problem is I'm not allowed to. Because if anything's mentioned against certain people, and you know who they are, certain people.
He can't mention Michael Cohen or Stormy Daniels, but Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels can disparage him, demean him, mock him, denigrate him, insult him, all they want on social media, in interviews, but he can't say anything against them. This is the state of American politics.
Anything's even mentioned, he wants to put me in jail, and that could happen one day, and I'd be very proud to go to jail for our Constitution, because what he's doing is so unconstitutional. There's never been anything like it. These are story after story right here. Look at this, one after another. And this is over the last 2 days. Story after story. Hannity, big story. They're all big. Dershowitz, Jonathan Turley, Andrew McCarthy, Rick Jarrett. They've all been amazing. They're not friends. Nobody's friends. They're writing stories. They've never seen anything like that. They've never seen anything like what's going on today in this court is a very dark day for New York City, New York State, and it's a very dark day for our nation. And in the meantime, I can't be out campaigning. They could have.
Absolutely nobody will view this as the rule of law. Democrats will gleefully say it's about the rule of law. They'll know that New York Democrats, media, everybody that wanted to call Trump a felon will be able to if he's convicted. And it'll be overturned. But until it gets overturned, they will have it'll be pure ecstasy and joy. They will be so happy to finally say Trump is a felon. Meanwhile, the rest of humanity, with a functioning brain cell, will know that it's despots, authoritarians, totalitarians, complete authoritarians will make a mockery of democracy while pontificating about democracy. This man will win in a landslide. It'll be overturned. The New York Court of Appeals will probably take time. It'll probably overturn his first or second year in office. And Democrats, it's like their party, to be a liberal Democrat today, what do you stand for? You have Biden routinely releasing strategic petroleum reserves, and then they pontificated about the planet. You have foreign policy nightmare after foreign policy catastrophe and debacle. We're on the brink of a terrible stock market collapse. Interest rates and inflation is through the roof, and all because of Trump's mean tweets. Democrats would rather have a terrible economy and an atrocious foreign policy because they don't like Trump's personality. They couldn't just deal with Trump for 4 years. They had to divide the country with stupid, completely immoral, and unconstitutional investigations of Trump, while at the same time defending at all costs the criminality that exists with laptops and other issues that they face. Biden's mishandling of classified data, infinitely worse than Trump. Trump didn't even mishandle anything. He was a president with the power to declassify. Every single president has taken classified data without being indicted for it, because they say they declassified the data. A senator and a secretary of state don't have the authority or the ability to declassify anything. But anyway, let's continue.
Brought it, I told you, 7 years ago. They could have brought it if they were going to bring it. Remember, everybody turned it down. Southern District turned it down. Washington turned it down. The Federal Election Commission turned it down. And you know who else turned it down? Cy Vance turned it down. Everybody turned it down. And then Bragg came in and he turned it down. And he got very angry, actually, because a man named Pomerantz came out. And what's happening with Pomerantz? Are the papers looking into that deal? But he got himself into a jam. And so what happened is Bragg turned it down. And then when the election comes along, he said, well, let's go. But it's not a case that's been turned down. Remember this. It's a federal case. They all turned it down. And he's bringing it into the state, or the city, I guess. Look, he's a district attorney where crime is rampant, violent crime is all over the place, the city's going to hell. And they have many prosecutors in there. I couldn't even count them. It looked to me like certainly they have had more than 20 prosecutors sitting there over the fact that somebody paid a lawyer, and in paying the lawyer, so it was a legal expense, that somebody happened to be me. I didn't do the bookkeeping. I didn't even know about it, but a very good bookkeeper marked a legal expense down as a legal expense. They didn't call it construction. They didn't call it building something or concrete or electrical cost. They called, very simply, a legal expense to a lawyer. Not a fixer, it was a lawyer. Legal expense to a lawyer, they called it legal expense. They said it was marked incorrectly. What else would you call it? It's a legal fee or a legal expense, so we called it a legal expense. This is what the case is about. And it's not about all of the other stuff that you've been seeing, because we're using that to attempt, it's had no impact because it's so old, attempt to do something to me politically. But the good news is the people understand it. Our poll numbers are the highest they've ever been. And it's ridiculous that I'm not going to be out campaigning for another week or two as these thugs, these corrupt thugs, and that includes the judge. He should throw this case out. This case should go no further. Every legal expert, the ones I named and many more, Calabrese, another one, many of them, they came out and they said this case should not go forward. It's not a case. There's no crime. There is no crime. And they failed to show a crime. This is election interference. It all comes out of Washington. They have their reps here. You know, they have their reps here. I'm sure you know that. But this all comes out of Washington. It's to damage crooked Joe Biden's political opponent, happens to be me. And we're leading big in the polls, and the American people get it. It's a scam. So tomorrow we're doing a big rally, and it's going to be in Wildwood, New Jersey. We're going for the state of New Jersey. We think we can win New Jersey, and we think we can win a lot, because what's happening in our country is horrible. Between inflation and the horrible economy, and the only reason, by the way, the stock market goes up is that I'm leading in all the polls. If I weren't leading, the stock market would be way down. But I'm leading, and based on the fact that I'm...
So you have a situation, ladies and gentlemen, where if this were if the shoe were on the other foot, and Trump's DOJ, and let's say, you know, a city in let's say a city in a red state, a major city in a red state, were indicting Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden or Hunter, they would not stop calling this an authoritarian, despotic, totalitarian, tyrannical attempt at subverting democracy. They would call Trump everything under the sun. They would say that he was a totalitarian despot going after his direct political rivals. They even impeached him for allegedly going after his direct political rivals, which was hilarious. Now they've indicted him, hundreds of years in prison. None of the cases, literally none of the cases, will result in Trump losing or spending time in prison. The only case where they'll get a conviction, likely, is in New York, and that will be overturned when he's president. So what have you gained? If you're a wonderful, morally superior liberal Democrat and you're so happy that Trump is convicted, what have you gained from it? He's still going to be president, and the conviction will be overturned.
Courtroom today. Where's the crime and what is the crime? Can you please tell me, Professor, because I don't know.
I've been doing this 60 years and I can't find the crime here. What I can find is a crime committed today in the courtroom by Michael Cohen. He looked the jury in the eye and he lied. They asked him why he tape recorded his client. And instead of saying, well, maybe I was afraid, I needed some protection, he made up this whole story about why he did it for a pecker. And nobody is going to believe that. And I think this raises serious ethical problems for the prosecutors. In 60 years of doing this, I have never put a witness like Michael Cohen on the stand because I have ethics. And good lawyers don't put people on the stand who they know are going to lie, either on direct, and he lied, I believe, on direct, or on cross. And we're going to see lie after lie after lie on cross. And so we see ethical violations occurring right in front of us and lies occurring right in front of us. We don't even have to get into the issue that he lied before and he went to jail. He lied right to this jury. And I hope at least the lawyers on the jury will see through it and understand that he's trying to sell this jury a bill of goods. But if you listen to CNN or if you read the New York Times, this was the most compelling testimony you've ever seen in your life. And that's why these trials should be on television, so we can decide for ourselves who's telling the truth instead of having to understand this evidence through the prism of biased reporting.
You know, and by the way,
notice how Democrats care so much about lies, and then when Michael Cohen or Biden or Hunter or any of Hillary or any Democrat lies, they don't care. So it's not like it's become a religion on the left. Okay, there used to be a time when Democrats and Republicans would see each other at church, would, believe in God, would see each other at, social events. Now you have a great man. This is fine. I love Christopher Hitchens. He's an inspiration to me, for example. But there are atheists that run the Democratic Party, great many atheists who are wonderful, morally superior, liberal Democrats. Their religion is politics. It's like what they worship. So they don't even see the inflation, interest rates, crime, foreign policy nightmares. They don't see any of this as a problem. Their religious doctrine is now in the Oval Office, and they can say, well, we're doing something for the planet as Biden releases strategic petroleum reserves. And they don't, and if their side lies, they don't care. In fact, not only do they not care, they don't know of the lies. They just don't know. They're not told of these lies by the New York Times or Washington Post. If anything, the emphasis on Trump lying. And they think that their lies are not that big of a deal. They lie about huge things like private servers, like laptops, like foreign policy catastrophes. Okay, what did Trump lie about? How good the economy was? A crowd size during his inaugural, and they hyperventilate about these hyperbolic statements from Trump as they blatantly lie left and right. Anyway, the FEC dropped the hush money payments. The hush money case. Hit subscribe to this channel if you're new. To my super chat, thank you. I can't thank you enough. If he gets convicted, I'll be doing, obviously, a million segments on it. But watch this. Prior to the court case, the man is going to get any conviction overturned. He will become the next president. His poll numbers will skyrocket. Everyone knows what's going on. Hit subscribe to this channel. God bless you.